Hey guys, Marlos here. Today we're going to make some Lightning Arrow Deadeye, Temple Mod, Abyssal Socket gloves. We'll make them as cheaply as possible, but they will still cost around 70 Divine on average, to make sure we have some money going into this. First thing we're going to do is get a pair of gloves with one of the 3 Temple mods. We can resistance swap them around, so we don't need the cold one. So we've got fire damage against burning enemies, critical strike chance against shocked enemies, and increased damage against chilled enemies, if I just find it here. First way we're going to save money is we're going to buy these gloves with more than one suffix. To do the mod transfer to the base we want, you need to only have one suffix, the temple mod being the suffix. But there is a way to clean up the item with a 50-50 chance, save some money. So you see there, 30 chaos, but the suffixes are full. If I then specify that I want to have 2 empty suffixes, the price is 5 times higher, but the expected cost is only doubled when doing the method I'm going to show you. So on average, it'll cost 70 chaos instead of 150. So that's a nice saving there. Also make sure you get item level 84 and above. So we just buy the gloves there. That's the base we're going to try and recombinate onto. But first, for cleaning up the gloves, we just get any pair of gloves. And what we need is a bad mod that we can pick from. Bad meaning low tier, so tier 7, tier 8, something like that. Because this will give the recombination a very high chance for success. And also we want a prefix, because the whole point of this is to isolate the suffix. So see there we've got tier 7 life. We use the predictable recombination. It's a 50-50. We lost. We go again with another pair of gloves. During crafting you will lose many times, but as long as you've worked out beforehand or you followed a video to know that what you're doing is mathematically correct, then don't feel too bad about RNG, because in the end it will work out in your favor. So we do the same thing again. We get another pair of gloves. As I said, you don't have to do this process. In the grand scheme of what the craft will cost, you're not saving much, but it's just an interesting thing to show. You can use this in many ways to isolate modifiers. Is one of the only useful things for the recombination. Predictable. See, it failed again. Skipped ahead to a new pair of gloves, and now we have succeeded. We have the mod we want by itself. Now we need to get the mod onto these phantom mitts, the base we actually want. The way we're going to do this is use the Screaming Essence of Rage. It has to be this essence specifically because it applies strength, as you can see, of the Goliath is the name of the modifier. But strength cannot naturally exist on Dex Int gloves. So this ensures that even if the recombination picks the wrong base, the only eligible suffix modifier will be the temple mod, so the temple mod can never be deleted. Make sure it's the Screaming Essence of Rage. You cannot use a higher tier essence because that essence gives the tag of the essence. If you see that tag, it means it's not going to work, because that is an exclusive modifier and you'll literally end up with a 0 mod item in the end. So just make sure that the essence you use, it says of the Goliath or similar. Well, in this instance, the only one you can use is the Screaming. The Wailing essence is too low of an item level. There are times where you can use the second highest essence or even the highest essence, but for this craft, use Screaming Essence of Rage. They're not too expensive. Now what we want to do is make it so strength is the only suffix on the item. The prefixes don't matter. We're going to fill them afterwards anyways for the fracture. As you see, suffix only when we have is strength. On the other item, the only suffix we have is the temple mod. As I said, prefixes don't matter. And we missed. But as you can see, the modifier is intact. So now we go again. This would be a good opportunity for me to show you another way that you can save costs. We're going to go on the trade site and we're going to buy another over quality pair of gloves. It's worth getting at least 25% when doing a craft like this because the cost of the gloves relative to the amount you're going to put into them is not that much. What you can do is if you buy an unsplit pair of gloves, you can then use a phenomenal played arachnid, which costs around 30 chaos at the time, to make 2 copies. So that's a good saving. I think we're going to go buy the beast here. I'm blind apparently. Yeah, so 33 chaos, but it lets us duplicate our 150 chaos base. Just have another chance.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Just take into consideration the price of the split versus the unsplit base and make sure that you know what you're buying. I didn't make the target rare, unfortunately, so we have to go again. Split the item using bestiary. And there we go. 1, 2. Okay, so while I do this in the background, let's talk about the next steps. Once you've got the mod isolated, if you do not have the cold temple mod, you need to resistance swap using harvest to cold. You can go back and forth between fire and cold, which is cheaper than going to lightning, because that's why you choose fire. This will essentially divine the modifier, so you can get a roll that you're happy with. Then you need to hit the 1 in 4 fracture. Fill prefixes to hit the fracture, so use an Eldritch Ember, and then use Eldritch Exalted Orbs, so then you only add prefixes. The reason for this is you'll have an isolated suffix like we wanted from the beginning, and if you miss the fracture, you can then transfer this modifier off this base onto a new Phantom Mitts base, which is essentially what we just did earlier, but it wasn't on the Phantom Mitts base originally. This makes you save the temper mod rather than having to isolate it again. So just a tip there. I already had full prefixes, so I didn't need to add the Ember at this stage. And also there's some cutting I've had to do because I messed up on the craft a little bit, but you won't see that. So hit the fracture. Very lucky 1 in 4. And now we go to the fossils. Hollow, Shuddering, and Sanctified. This essentially is for T1 attack speed, an Abyssal socket, and a higher chance of a high roll. We use the powerful Chaotic Resonator as it has 3 fossil slots. And we miss. It's around a 1 in 13 chance. So it's not too bad, but it will cost you a fair amount with the price of hollow fossils. Now what we need to do is get T1 life. So make sure you use an Eldritch Ember, so your gloves are glowing red. This makes it so Eldritch currency will only target the prefixes of an item, so our suffixes are safe. There's a few ways you can do this. You can craft a blocker modifier. Mana is the best one. Then you can use an Exalted Orb. You don't need to use an Eldritch Exalted Orb, as there's only open prefixes. But make sure you use Eldritch Annuls and Eldritch Chaos. So you craft the mana, you exalt 1 time, you remove the mana, you annul the modifier away, you craft mana again, and you repeat the process. Just make sure you remove the crafted mod because you don't want to waste an Eldritch Annul, annulling mana, and then annulling the mod you actually added on. You can also use Eldritch Chaos. I'm not sure which is better, to be honest. It's just, they're both good options. What Eldritch Chaos will do is it will typically give you a 4 mod item, as that is the number of mods that a Chaos Orb gives most of the time. But as it can only affect the prefixes, and we already have 3 suffixes, on average it will just give you 1 prefix, which is exactly what you want. So I just hit a few Eldritch Chaos Orbs to get T1 life. Now we need to craft suffixes cannot be changed, but we can use the Wild Bristle Matron. It adds a random Metamod, but as prefixes are the only place where it can add a modifier, the only prefix Metamod is suffixes cannot be changed, so we can save a lot of money here. It will typically cost 2 divine to craft this, so paying around 100 chaos is a big improvement. Now we have suffixes cannot be changed. We go to a 50-50 veiled exalted orb. It's very painful if you miss this. I actually did miss this and I had to do it again. That's why you see the gloves change earlier in the video. So this is actually the second time I'm doing it. So don't feel too bad about, you know, I'm hitting everything first time. No, I missed the most expensive part the first time I did it. So, yep, it happens. You use the Veiled Exalted Orb and you craft physical converted to fire damage to block it. And then you pick either physical converted to lightning, physical converted to cold, or projectile speed. And then we're going to craft on the one we don't hit. So I got physical converted to lightning, 32%. The roll isn't too important. It's just to help us achieve 100% physical to lightning conversion, because we're using a Fizzbow. So I'll craft on projectile speed and projectile damage. Let's craft it till we get the max roll. And now we need to do our Eldritch Implicits. The Embers are a lot more expensive than the Ichors. So we're going to go with the Embers first. We're going to use the Greater Ember, the third one. Not the fourth, because it's way too expensive. Until we hit Rage on hit. Then we're going to use some Orb of Dominance to get the modifier to a higher level, so we get 2 Rage on hit instead of 1. So we keep spamming until we hit the Rage on hit. I think it's about 1 in 100 chance, so it can take you quite a few, but you'll see the way we're going to do it will save us money compared to spamming the next tier up of Ember. If you don't know, the Orb of Dominance, it raises the tier of one Eldritch Implicit and lowers the tier of the other. The probability is based on the relative tier of both modifiers. The higher the tier of the modifier, the lower the chance of upgrading. It's a 50-50 chance if they're equal, and then it's around a 10% less chance for every tier higher. So you can use that to skew the odds in our favor. As you can see, it's taking me a century to hit Rage. There we go. So we use the 4th tier of Ichor to make the difference in tiers in our favor. And then we use the Orb of Dominance. We didn't elevate the modifier we wanted. We actually made the hits have 74% chance to ignore enemy physical reduction higher. So we try again. As you can see, it went to 70, then it went to 75, so we lowered it and we raised it again. And there, success. So it'll take a few times, but when you miss and you raise the tier of the modifier you don't want, it will make your next use of the Orb of Dominance have a higher probability of success. So you've lost, but you didn't fully lose, which is not too bad, I guess. Also, because the Embers are so expensive, you can consider using the 2nd tier of Eldritch Ember and then using another Orb of Dominance. You just have to balance between the cost of adding the modifier via Embers and the Orb of Conflict cost. So yeah, I hope this video helped you guys. Any questions, leave a comment. Yeah, thanks for watching.